All right, guys, I actually want to talk about something a little bit different today. I started this conversation on Instagram and I want to give more insight and details on my Patreon because I might be shifting my content a little bit. Um, I want to talk about Big Daddy energy, which is really just divine masculine energy. So, if you, as you guys know, I've been single for a while. I've been trying to figure out if I want to dip my toes in the dating pool and I've been kind of waiting, but I've been getting very horny lately. And really, it's y'all's fault. It's social media's fault. Y'all want me to talk about stroking and eating pussy. Like, y'all always love these, like, very provocative topics. I'll try to get really spiritual. And a lot of times people do like to hear about Kundalini and stuff like that. But the videos that always do extremely well are the ones where I am explaining my experiences around pleasure, which I actually think that's very beautiful. And I think I'm going to lean into that because I think there's this false narrative that men just don't like women, don't care about women. All they are is about ego and money and like using women. And that's not the case. I think the exact opposite is the case. I think men are pleasers. And I think that the reason why men feel like they can't be pleasers is because in order to be a pleaser, you have to be vulnerable. And if men are constantly feeling used and abused, different in a different way than women, but still used and abused, they're not going to want to be vulnerable and they're not going to want to be pleasers. But, when that happens, they step out of their big daddy energy because that's what it's aligned with. And I wanted to go deeper into this topic because I just keep seeing a pattern that's going on with men. Um, and I think it's really sad. And now that I've kind of like, because I put the videos that I put out, I've been getting a lot of inquiries in my DMs. And I noticed that the men that are in their big daddy energy are often younger. And I'm like, why is this? Why are all these 20-year-olds in my DMs? And why are they coming off so much more confident, so much more like big daddy energy? And I'm realizing like that's what I'm missing. Like that's what I'm looking for. And it just doesn't exist. And I want to set the tone too by saying that you can. I've been around men that are like between 6'3" and 6'4", played professional sports, um, and also have lots of money, could have any woman that they want, very attractive. And just like women, oftentimes those guys are the most insecure guys, and they're not in their big daddy energy because they have traded this idea that being tall or being handsome or having money is what it takes to attract the things that you want in life. But that is something that capitalism and really white people, if I'm completely honest, I'm sorry if there's any white people that are watching, have sold our community and people in general. Because if they can get you to believe that your divine masculine energy is not worth anything, and to prove your masculinity, like the authentic version of you, the humanity in you, if that's not really worth anything. It's all about materialism. It's all about what type of girl can you get. It's all about, are you tall enough? How big is your dick? If they convince men, or when they do, because they are, then they can make money off of you. They can sell you anything. And then they also can control you. So what often happens is men will, instead of just being authentically themselves, because I feel like boys are born being confident, maybe a little mischievous, but they're outgoing, they're adventurous. And what happens is as they get older and they start to experience life and people tell them, well, a woman's not going to want you if you don't have this amount of money, or if you're not this height, or if you don't have a lot of power and influence, they start to adjust themselves to these roles so they can be seen as somebody that's masculine, somebody that's accepted, also probably to be safe so their homeboys aren't making fun of them and all this stuff. But what happens is the men that actually achieve that type of success, whether it's monetary success or whether they just physically built a certain way or both, what they will find is that they still get cheated on. People still take advantage of them. It's hard for them to find authentic connections because everybody's focused on the aesthetic or using these men as validation. Like they're still getting used. Like, say you don't have a lot of money, say you're short, and all the things that people say is not attractive. Like you're still dealing with the same things as people who like have a lot of men and that tall and all this stuff. And a lot of times for men who achieve these roles to a certain degree, they have a lot of success. Usually those are the ones that suffer the most because they attract the most superficial people. The reason why is because they get used for validation. It's like, look, this person did this for me, or this person is in my circle, or this person is going to help me get this or that. And it's happening with women. So women are buying into this idea that in order for them to be validated, they need to have a man that does A, B, C, and D. But a lot of times they're not even attracted to that. I'm telling you right now, guys, women are heterosexual women are attracted to big daddy energy. They are attracted to men that are confident. And confidence looks like, I like you, I'm going after what I want because I think that you have something that I want. You excite me in some type of way. I'm drawn to you. I'm going out on a prey. It's not harassment. When men are harassing women, it's because they feel like they're incomplete or they're insecure and they need you as validation. And if you ignore them or if you tell them no, then they're like, no, you didn't tell me no. And I'm going to keep harassing you or keep at you until you give me the respect that they think that they deserve. Men who are in their big daddy energy, they're like, hey, I really want to get to know you. What do I need to do to get your attention? However, they don't go outside of themselves to please you. They're just letting you know, hey, I really like you. They pursue you strongly. But if you say no, they'll be like, okay, no, I tried. But if you give them any kind of like, maybe I'm not sure, maybe blah, 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 then they'll be like, okay, they'll keep going. But they don't disrespect themselves. They're not going to give you their life savings or put themselves in a position where they're harming themselves just to get to you. It doesn't mean that they still don't want to provide for women or take them on nice dates or things like that, but they're not going to sacrifice their authenticity. They're not going to step out of alignment of their natural ego, healthy ego, to please a woman or to get a woman. And usually I feel like a man that's in a healthy ego, in his big daddy energy, in his divine masculinity, is not going to attract anything. When he's in that energy, he's not going to attract anything that's going to be extremely harmful to who he is as a human, right? So like it might be there might be some vulnerability, there might be a little bit of rejection, there might be a little bit like, oh, this didn't last and I really missed her, but it's not a thing of where like you sell your soul and you just put up with whatever just to have a certain type of woman to validate your masculinity. And I'm telling you, this happens all the time with people that you would think this doesn't happen to. I've seen men, very, very attractive, very, very talented, will go and mess with very low vibrational women just to make themselves feel good. In fact, this happens a lot with men that are highly attractive or have money because they keep running into the same shallow relationships. And so they keep needing validation. It doesn't mean that someone in their big daddy energy doesn't attract multiple women or doesn't want multiple women, but they don't feel like they need that. And it just feels different. And I think the reason why a lot of times what I have noticed is that a lot of men in their big daddy energy are actually younger is because they haven't lived a lot to the point where the world has broken them down. Like they still are vibrant, they still are like excited about life and all of this stuff. When you hit men that are unfortunately like in their 40s, if they've gone through a divorce, or if just work and just trying to be a good man and being tore down all the time, because what happens with men systematically is like not only are you told that the authentic version of you is not good enough, you have to like continue to make money just so that you can get acceptance. Like the world, capitalistic world, tells the man you have no value unless you can work for capitalism and be good at it. But if you can't in a very typical way, then you are unworthy. But the big daddy energy men don't buy into that, or they haven't lived in a world long enough where they've experienced that yet. And I think a lot of times that's what happens with young men. And we need to start to protect that, and we need to heal the men that are broken. And I want people to realize that. So I want to give you some examples of big daddy energy. And then I'm going to give you some examples of the opposite of that. So you think of somebody like Prince. Prince had big daddy energy. Think about Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson had big daddy energy. If you know Kevin on Stage, he's a comedian. He's got his wife, he's got his family, big daddy energy. Why I think those men had big daddy energy is because they're okay being themselves. It's not about how many women they have or how much money they have. They were very, very unique and they had like crazy aura because they allowed themselves to be themselves. Michael Jackson was into all kinds of like kid like things, Never Land, grabbing his dick and like, thrusting his hips and all of this stuff. He wore makeup, and he had like a wig on half the time, but his aura was insane. Not only was he good at what he did, but he just was authentically himself. He did not let all the shit that he went through, he did not let it change what his mission was, the things that he loved to do. He helped children. Like he stayed in his big daddy energy. He didn't let anybody distract him from doing that. And he loved women. When you're in your big daddy energy, you're in your masculine divinity, you're going to naturally be attracted to femininity. And women used to faint over him all the time. And he loved women. Prince was the same way, very good at his craft, never let anybody like tell him that he couldn't be a certain way. And, he did his own thing. He was authentic to himself. Again, two different big daddy energies. It's not about how big they were or like how much money they made, even though they both made a lot of money. But I think Prince had just as much big daddy energy as Michael Jackson did. And Michael Jackson had more money than Prince, obviously. Kevin on Stage, he's a comedian. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a little chubby, soft, but he's like, he catered toward the Christian community, but he also caters towards the masses, and that's why he gets in trouble a lot. But he's always himself. He never really wavers, and I think that's why he has a solid like relationship with his wife, and he's having a lot of success. He works very hard, and he's just very confident in his energy. He's not running around talking about he's got this car and got this many hoes and all this stuff. He's not doing that. He's very happy with what he's doing. He's just very confident in his belief system and how he moves, and he's has a lot of success. And you could tell that he's confident and he's happy. Now he seems like he's working a lot, but he also enjoys what he does. Nothing has kind of distracted him to do anything too crazy, at least not that we've heard of. Examples of wounded masculines. So, and unfortunately, it happens a lot with our professional athletes. So you think about a Shannon Sharp. This man, big, strong, tall, played one of the hardest sports in the world, was super successful at it, also has his own business. And then what happened? He let a woman, somebody low vibrational, and he probably was low vibrational too, having issues, you know, take a lot of his money, and he had to make settlements and things like that. He's also had issues with women and said things in the past about women. Example of somebody who has the money, has the physique, but mentally and aura wise, he doesn't have the big daddy energy. Now, he still can come off masculine in some ways, but to me, that's not attractive. That's not big daddy energy. Neo, he's another example. He, cheated on his wife and had a whole bunch of stuff. Now he's got 3 women. When I see Neo, I see somebody who never recovered from his first marriage, had a lot of issues, and then had to get 3 other women or multiple women to validate his ego to make him feel masculine. And unfortunately, in the entertainment industry, there's all kinds of stuff that's going on, with men being molested and these rappers and things like that. We've heard a lot of cases where a lot of these rappers, Diddy, molesting a lot of these artists. And a lot of these same artists are the same ones that talk about having a lot of hoes, having a lot of cars, having a lot of money. But then they're letting somebody bend them over. And I don't have any issue with homosexuality, but if you're doing something in exchange for your soul, just so that you can have money or a record deal or to make your dreams come true, that's not big daddy energy. That's not divine masculinity. That is allowing somebody to overpower you and take the essence of you away and use it for whatever they want to use it for. And it's a systematic problem. And so I think the reason why this narrative keeps growing is because women are buying into this idea also that a man's masculinity is defined by what he can provide. And so they are starting to chase whatever these 1% of what they're calling high value men, And when women start to chase, that makes them the masculine version, and that puts a man in his femininity. That's why I really feel like a man can never really love a woman who chases him, or love a woman that treats him or love a woman if he treats her poorly, because he knows he's not in his divine masculinity. A man cannot be in his divine masculinity if a woman is constantly pandering to him, chasing him, because he's supposed to be the one on the hunt. He's supposed to be the one going after things. He's supposed to be the one setting the tone. Divine masculinity and big daddy energy is also not when you hear a guy like constantly talking bad about women, if he's constantly like talking about himself, because when a guy is peacocking too much or he's projecting his insecurities onto women, it's because he's trying to prove that he's worthy of something. I remember this recently happened to me. I was talking to a former professional athlete, and I wanted to ask him some advice on podcasting, because he had got into podcasting and he was trying to motivate me. I was not like in the best place. And he was like, I'm top of the food chain, blah, 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 blah. You should listen to me. You should be getting excited. You got me on the phone. And I was just like, I was so like shocked, because I'm like, why do you feel like you have to say you're top of the food chain? Like, obviously, people admire you. They see you as a pioneer. Like, why do you need to say that? Why do you need to like make a list of your accomplishments to little old me? And that let me know like he didn't actually feel very confident. This big, strong, beautiful man who's made lots of money, women love him to death, is super insecure. And a lot of times those insecurities come from them feeling like they can't live up to the standards that people project onto them. They also don't feel like they're in control of their life. And there is no real reward for doing all of that stuff. Money does not buy you peace. It definitely does not buy you love. You end up in a lot of like shallow connections. Not saying that money is a bad thing and that you shouldn't go after, like the bag or whatever, because you want to take care of your family or you want to provide for your partner. But it should not be the driving force of determining what your worth is or proving your worth to people. It should not. And you also should not trade anything that makes you feel lesser than or are not aligned with your authentic self for money or for a woman. Like a lot of times, like if you see men that are all going for a, a certain type of woman, if especially if it's like our people and they're trying to get close proximity to whiteness as possible, you could, and not saying that those women, like fair skinned women, are not attractive. That's not true. A lot of them are. But a lot of times when you see someone going for a certain aesthetic and a certain look, it is because they are trying to get validated by the outside world. It's about their masculinity. And because of that, a lot of times these women know that. So they don't see these men is having authentic connections. And a lot of times men know that these women don't really love them anyway, but they're vibrationally low. And so they work together. But a lot of times there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in those relationships. Those women are cheating. A lot of times those women are trading money for this or that. Again, I've met some men that have money, tall, professional athletes in the entertainment industry, and these women are doing the most diabolical things either behind their back or in front of them, and they find out and they don't talk about it because it's embarrassing. Because if this is happening to them, then what's going to happen to everybody else? But a lot of times they are having the worst experiences, because just because a woman is aesthetically conventionally attractive to a lot of people does not mean that she's wholesome. It does not mean that she cares about you. Women are attracted to big daddy energy. And if you are using a woman to validate you, she can't really love you. And she's going to be, and as soon as somebody comes along with real confidence, she's going to want attention from them. She's not going to care. When you are in your big daddy energy, you'll be surprised the type of women that you will attract or what you will attract into your life, period. You can attract whatever into your life that's aligned with you, that really helps build you up. Instead of just attracting transactional relationships or relationships where people, places, things, circumstances are just using you. I have also been around a man who's very handsome, very smart, and was like kind of like sleeping around with a lot of women. And literally, you could see that he was depleted, he was tired. And I was like, it's because you are messing around with all these low vibrational women. A lot of these women are traumatized too. So when you are sticking your penis inside of them, you are entering into like a cavern that's filled with like low vibration, and they're pulling your energy from you. Like, men do not understand how precious their energy really is. And that's why there's our systems designed to actually control you. I use this as an example on the podcast. If you think about one of the most televised influential events in the world that's going on right now is the NBA finals. And it's not just because men are throwing balls around and putting it and throwing it in a basket. It's because the men and their energy is creative. It's their life force. It's all the power that they draw all this attention. If you had the same game going on representing the same cities, but they weren't as athletic, they weren't as creative, they weren't as tall, like, there would not be as much interest in it. But because you have these very athletic men, let's face it, black men, and they have an energy about them, a strength about them, a power, a creativity that's very, very unique, and it draws all eyes on them. That is why everybody is watching them. And that is very powerful. And that's why you have certain entities that make sure that they control the narratives. There's even, there's also even theories around like they predetermine who's going to win the game. And the reason why is because when you have that much attention and that much power, you literally can shift millions of people. You inspire millions of people, or you can make millions of people sad. In New York, if you look at like social media, everybody's going crazy. They're talking about how crime is down. It literally shifts people's energetic frequencies just watching these men and their like life force energy and being creative just through throwing a ball around and running up and down a court. But it's not just about that. It's about seeing a display of their creative life force energy. And that's sexual energy. That's testosterone. Testosterone is a sex hormone. As sexual energy. That's primal life force energy in movement, in display, in action. Some of the purest form. But every man has that in his own way. And the more authentic you are, the more you stay in that kind of big daddy energy. And if you are someone who wants to like attract a partner that appreciates the humanity in you and builds you up and helps you to be the best man that you can be, and like you make love and like she enjoys you and you enjoy her, you have to be in your big daddy energy. You cannot buy into this kind of capitalistic agenda that you trade the essence of who you are just to make money. Not saying that you shouldn't make money, but there's a million different ways to make money. You don't have to trade your life force in to do it. Don't trade your life force in just to get a girl that is depleting you of all your money and resources, and you're not really getting anything back from it except for like, look what I got. Look at her. She validates me. You should invest your money into women, people, places, things that help you build your life force up. This is why on this page, on my account, I try my best not to pander to men. Like, I know a lot of you guys are like, ooh, we want to see more pictures or we want to see this or that. I only try to do things that I actually think feed your soul, feed your life force energy. Now, yes, I do some fun things because I know that that brings excitement, but you have to have balance in order to stay in your big daddy energy. A man cannot be in his big daddy energy if a woman is constantly pandering to him. And when I get men on here who want me to pander to them, through money, I'm like, that's a turnoff to me, and it makes me not want to do it. That's why somebody was asking me why I'm not on OnlyFans. That's why, because OnlyFans is designed to suck the life force out of people, get you addicted. And that's why the pay structure is the way it is. Like, you pay for every little thing. Um, and it's like, I'm not saying demonizing OnlyFans, but depending on like your intentions with it and the intentions of the platform, it's meant to like suck you in and get you to pay for every little thing. My goal on Patreon is to teach you about sacred sexuality, energy, and how you can actually improve your life. So stay in your big daddy energy and know if that anybody's pandering to you, if anybody's making you feel like your humanity is not enough, you need to tap into that little boy that used to run around and have fun and didn't know anything was wrong with you until somebody told you. You need to tap back into that energy and don't try to replace or avoid, dealing with that the negative things that have attached to your ego that were not you. Face those things, heal those things, and so that you can get back into your big daddy energy, because that's the only way you're going to get the things that you want.